If I could, I'd like to move the County Board of Commissioners Tuesday board meeting for June 21st, 2022 to order with the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation led by Commissioner Tony Beer.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day, glorious and warm. Thank you for the company that is assembled here this evening. Please watch over us and help us to conduct our business today in a manner which is respectful to you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
If we could have the roll call by Chief Deputy County Clerk Sierra Soul.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bear.
Present.
Commissioner Walls.
Present.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Present.
Commissioner Duckham.
Here.
Commissioner Pileski.
Here.
Commissioner Alexander.
Present.
Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Snell.
Here.
Chairman Chatwell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda as presented. Yes, sir.
From consideration of the consent agenda, item number 9B and 9F.
I appreciate that, but we will do that at the time of voting on the consent agenda, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other items that are in the regular agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have no awards and recognition. We have no communications. Any petitions to come before the board? Seeing none, we have no special orders nor public hearings.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir?
there was a hand that went up.
Is that to speak? Just
No, ma'am, I'm coming to it right now.
okay.
We've arrived at the first time for public comment. Public comment guideline, each individual will state their name and have 3 minutes to address the board. You may only address the board once under this public comment opportunity and may not yield your time to others. Board members will not debate or answer questions at this time. This is the first opportunity for public comment.
My name is Vanessa Malnix. I'm from Springport Township. I am given the Juneteenth holiday on Monday. It's a fitting time to recommend 2 books, at least one of which I think should be mandatory reading for Jackson County students. The first one is Amazing Grace, the story of William Wilberforce. He's from England. He dedicated his life to the abolishment of slavery, and this was actually given to me by a patriot, Amy Hawkins. It's a story I never knew. And the second one is The Hidden History of Jackson County, written by Linda Haas. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this book, but she wrote this along with valuable input from Ken Wyatt and Calvin Battles of the District Library. This book should be mandatory for all Jackson County students. Jackson was literally founded as a place of freedom for the abolishment of slavery. Names like DeLand, Blackman, Allen, and Sullivan, true heroes in the fight to abolish slavery. 2 newspapers were founded in Jackson for the specific purpose of the abolition of slavery. Stories about the Underground Railroad. One story of a slave owner traveling from the south to Adrian to retrieve this person who had to be relocated from there to the Watkins farm, which is between Brooklyn and Manchester, and it's a house that I played at as a child. Reading this book makes me proud to be a native of Jackson County, makes me proud to be a Republican, a party founded on the abolition of slavery. This is what should be taught to school children, not the division spurred on by the Marxist theology of DEI and CRT. The County of Jackson, Michigan can be proud of its heritage and its history. Thank you.
My name is Fred Trexler, professor of physics retired from Summit Township. Tonight I'm speaking in favor of a tax increase of less than 1.5%, which seems small compared to the inflation rate right now. As you know, the half-mil tax to support the Jackson County Jail is expiring and needs to be renewed. But I have toured the Wesley Street Jail. Before my wife and I took the tour, I had thought that working at the jail would be a good first job for our granddaughter Rose, who has a bachelor's degree with highest honors in criminal justice. Now that I have seen the deplorable and dangerous conditions at this 70-year-old building, I definitely do not want Rose to apply. The building is literally falling apart, with the west addition separating from the original building. The sewer pipes are rusting out from the inside, so they break and leak sewage into catch pans and sometimes onto people. The heating and air conditioning systems have to be controlled manually by vice grips clamped onto a valve with no handle anymore. Cells are arranged in a linear array such that inmates cannot always be seen. This could be dangerous for the people who work there. The older parts of the closed-circuit surveillance system give poor quality images. The 2-foot-thick walls prevent radio communication within the building. These are just some of the problems that I learned about on our tour of the old jail. Jackson County needs a new jail for the safety of the Sheriff's Department and the inmates. I am asking the commissioners to support a 1 mil jail tax proposal for the November election. As Christians and American citizens, we want to see prisoners set free spiritually by Jesus, then rehabilitated to society. And I believe that Sheriff Gary Schuett is trying to work for rehabilitation. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Amy Hawkins from Pulaski Township, and thank you to each of you for your service to our county. I just want to ask a question that I know in this forum is not going to get an answer, but I just want you to know it's on my mind and on many citizens' minds. It is my understanding that you have been through the tour of the jail that was just discussed, and I think the question that is before a lot of us is, where have our commissioners been for the last 20, 30 years in overseeing the disaster that has taken place? I, for one, have been through a tour of the jail, and I have found the leadership to be outstanding, not casting blame, but genuinely seeking to make the best of the worst-case scenario, and they are serving with excellence and working to find a solution forward together. I know there are so many issues on your plates of priority. There are so many budgets that must be balanced and needs that are of great demand, but I would urgently speak on behalf of what I believe probably hundreds of citizens in the county to say, this issue matters to us. Please make sure our officers have good facilities to work in. Please make sure that inmates have good facilities to be housed in this season. And please help us make sure that we are serving both communities with the best that Jackson has to offer. Please make this a priority, and I look forward to further insight and explanation from our distinguished commissioners on this topic as a whole. Thank you very much.
Peter Blown with 142 West Pearl Street. Happy solstice to everybody. It's a major pagan holiday, and it's the longest day of the year. I want to speak to an issue that I constantly hear about when I'm out going door to door, and that is people in District 8 say, fix the roads. I want to let them know that the city streets are a city issue. And, that is not something a county commissioner has any power over. I have spoken before city council. I have asked the city manager and the city council to spend $7 million of their ARPA funds fixing our secondary streets because there's so limited funding from the state that they'll never be repaired if we don't take this opportunity. But that's a city decision and not a county decision. I also wanted to speak on, I think it's 10A, the letter of consistency for the Liberty landfill. I'd like to point out the letter of compliance. I'd like to point out that our solid waste plan has a couple goals. Goal number 2 is to protect the county's natural resources from pollution and contamination, and 2B is to ensure that ground and surface waters are not contaminated from solid waste management practices. So I'd like to point out that the silting of the Grand River, and I'm here to speak for the Grand River, for our waters, I don't believe that the Liberty landfill is in compliance. A lot of this is coal ash, fly ash dust that is blowing off the top of the piles out at the Liberty landfill. They use that coal ash as a day cover. According to Part 115 of the Natural Resources Environmental Protection Act, Section 324, there's also a lot of required monitoring and testing. I'd like this commission to make sure that that is being done out there before you offer them this letter of compliance. In the past, the Liberty landfill has not always been good about following state regulations. And also, I want to finally say that Parks is here with a number of requests. They all look good to me, but they had put in a handicapped kayaking dock out at Vandercook Lake for about $50,000. I talked to the people out there at the Vandercook Lake kayak rental, and so far, there's only been one person who has used it this year.
15 seconds.
So if that continues through the summer, June, July, and August, we have paid $50,000 for the opportunity for 3 people to take a paddling trip.
Good evening. I'm Nathaniel Mulvihill. I'm from Summit Township, Dibble Road. I'm running for Jackson County Commissioner in District 5. I'm a long-term, proud Jacksonian and Michigander. I've lived my entire life in Michigan, most of it right here in Jackson County. I'm a father of 2 grown children. Both are homeowners, one right here in Jackson County. I raised my kids through a recession without a college education and mostly on a single income. I am a proud Northwest High School graduate. And as such, I'm a strong supporter of public schools and public school teachers. My kids and I, as well as my brothers and sister, would not be as successful as we are without the public school system. My sister felt the call and she even became a teacher. I understand the struggles of teachers and know that teachers and the public school system know better than the general population about how and what our kids need in order to learn. In my 30 years plus at this point, 30-year career in entertainment lighting, I have traveled the country, and yet I always have returned to Jackson. Jackson is a great city and county with lots of potential. I plan to work together with Jackson City and all the other townships to build a more collaborative county and county commission. I'm hoping to bring Jackson County forward, focusing on ecology, science, listening to the experts in their fields, increasing business interests, and by business interests I mean local interests, not a couple more Dollar Generals. Although I won't be increasing diversity as another white guy on the Jackson County Commission, I will be increasing diversity of thoughts and ideas and equity. The County Commission needs to become more progressive and have a variety of viewpoints. I embrace science and evidence. I am a creative thinker and someone who works to find solutions. I am pro-union, pro-teacher, pro-family, pro-choice, and a strong LGBTQIA+ ally. I am pro-hunter, I am pro-sensible gun laws, and Black Lives Matter. If you live in my district, District 5, I am asking for your vote. If you don't live in my district, I'm asking for your support. I thank you for your time. Good evening. I have two separate comments to make to the board tonight. First, I'd like to welcome, belatedly, Mr. Jeremy Alexander to this board. When Jeremy was first named to the county commission, I was very pleased because of his outstanding previous service as a Jackson City
Can I have your
councilman.
name, sir, please?
Oh, sure. My name is William Hastings. I live in the city.
Thank you.
When Jeremy, I can only speak for myself. Personally speaking, I can only speak for myself when I say this, but as someone who does live in the city and carefully observes local politics, there is no small amount of malfeasance and self-dealing on the Jackson City Council and in the office of the mayor. When Jeremy served on the city council, he was a polite truth-teller who helped shed some much-needed sunlight on some of the more questionable goings-on in city government. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, after all. I can only add that Jeremy has never been a partisan and has always endeavored to represent every constituent and every person living in the city. One of the biggest cliches in politics is to say, I serve all my constituents, but not just the ones who personally support me. But in Jeremy's case, that is no cliche. It is a heartfelt truth that emanates from his personal character. For 4.5 months now, Jeremy has also had to contend with major life-changing injuries from a skydiving accident. He has done so with the utmost grace, dignity, grit, and personal perseverance. Where are all the decent and moral people in government, people will often ask. Well, one of them is sitting on the dais in front of all of us tonight. Thank you, Jeremy, and God bless you. The second issue I'd like to comment on is the proposed ballot millage for a new jail. Sheriff Schutte and the men who currently serve in the undersheriff position are outstanding public servants as well, who've impressed me with their wisdom, intelligence, and temperament. Does this warrant putting the measure on the fall ballot? No, actually it does not. What does warrant putting the measure on the fall ballot, is the well-documented, decrepit condition of the jail building itself. In the most recent MLive article about the jail, Sheriff Schutte commented, "The clogs are stronger than the pipe." Though this is a serious topic, I had to laugh. I laughed because these 7 words function as a good executive summary of the problem at hand. The county jail is basically a huge concrete bunker with 2-foot thick walls that cannot be brought up to anything approaching proper 2022 standards for a facility that is safe for prisoners and law enforcement officers alike. The clogs are stronger than the pipe. My time's running out. I support putting this measure on the fall ballot, and I support it. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Public comment is now closed. We have no special meetings of standing committees. Entertain the approval of minutes from May 17th, 2022.
So moved.
Have a motion and support. You ready, Madam Clerk? Minutes, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Duly carried. We've arrived at the consent agenda. Entertain a motion?
Support.
Have a motion and support. Commissioner Snell.
Yes, sir. I'd like to have 9B and 9F removed.
Those will end up under Standing Committee Public Safety and Transportation, becoming items C and D. Any other items? Mr. Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask to have items 10, D, E, F, and G removed from the consent agenda. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Those will move under Standing Committees General Government 14. And they will become B, C, D, and E.
Could you repeat those for me? I didn't hear that.
Yes, sir. consent items under general government. Items D, E, F, and G are being removed from the consent agenda and being moved to standing committee general government and becoming items B, C, D, and E. Commissioners, anything else for removal?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Williams.
I'd like to pull item 10A for 2 questions.
Region 2 Planning, Letter of Consistency, General Government. We will be moving that to Standing Committee, General Government, F. Yes, sir. Any other items for removal?
Clarification.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Snell, did he say item 9B? B as in bear? Did I hear that number, that letter correctly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The J-Dot Oil Gas Lease Belling Road Pit. Any other items? Madam Clerk, do you have the program in order?
Yes, I understand it.
Thank you. With that in mind, we'll be voting on the modified consent agenda as edited. Could you please post the vote when ready? Posted. It's on its way, gentlemen and ladies.
Motion passes.
9-0. And you posted it? Okay. Standing Committee, Public Safety and Transportation, chaired by Vice Chairman Corey Kennedy. Commissioner Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight we have some appointments. The Community Corrections Advisory Board, we're still looking for applicants and we'll need to re-advertise. The Jury Board, its current member is vacant. An applicant has been put forth by Judge Jordan. His name is David Hammondtree. He was also the committee recommendation.
Any nominations from the floor? Hearing none, to concur with the judge's appointment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Kennedy.
The next appointment's on the Emergency Management Advisory Board. It's a county commissioner position. The current member is Tony Bear. Due to scheduling conflicts, Commissioner Bear could no longer do that. Commissioner Snell has graciously stepped up, and that is the committee recommendation.
Any nominations from the floor? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Commissioner Kennedy.
Takes us to item B, prosecutor's staffing request.
Entertain a motion?
What are you moving?
I'll move to refer this back to the administrator's office for further review.
We have a motion and support. Takes precedent over the floor motion. No debate. All in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, same sign. All in favor, please.
Aye.
Those opposed? Commissioner Kennedy.
That will now take us to item C, new item C, which is the oil gas lease at Belling Road Pit. Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Commissioner Bear was looking for discussion.
Yes, Commissioner Bear? I apologize.
When this is being referred back to reconsideration, one thing that I asked for at committee, and I asked through an email to the Department of Transportation, I would like to see a site plan. Got 100-plus acres here, no idea where this oil operation is going to be plunked down within that. I'd like a site plan that shows the active quarry, the farmland that is rented out, the existing house and well that is on the site. So that's my request, to have a site plan included in the future discussions.
Duly noted. We ready to vote?
No, I don't know who, I didn't catch who sent the motion.
Commissioner Snell made the motion. Commissioner Duckham supported him.
Thank you.
That's a referral to the Administrator Controller's Office for further negotiations. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Commissioner Kennedy.
That takes us to item D, the Leone Township primary roads.
We have a motion and support. Commissioner Pileski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Always enjoy the opportunity to explain why I'm going to be a no vote on a motion. And I appreciate the creativity that has led to the possibility of dedicating some of the marijuana monies to road purposes and attracting the match by Leone Township. However, these marijuana monies are effectively county general fund dollars, could be used for any reasonable county purpose, and I'm sure with if there were 100 people in the room, you'd find 200 purposes. Therefore, I don't think, I think we have many other general fund needs, and would prefer not to see unrestricted dollars dedicated to road work for which the county road department receives millions of dollars of state motor transportation funds. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to explain why I'll be a no on this vote. Thank you.
Any other commissioners wish to comment? Commissioner Kennedy? Then Commissioner Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While Commissioner Pileski is correct in that the funding can be used for anything, should be duly noted that the funding was created in Leone Township by the marijuana businesses in Leone Township, and the roads that we're looking to repair are the roads that all the customers from all over Jackson County travel. So it makes perfect sense, it makes perfect logic. We've expended $400,000 plus already on county-wide projects. Some of it was for law enforcement from that money, and I see it only fit that Leone Township see a piece of that, not only for that reason, but also because their board has taken the unprecedented step to step forward and match the funds on primary roads. It's not been done in this county before, and we hope to see other communities do it, quite frankly. We need to get our roads repaired. So I'll be a yes, a resounding yes.
Commissioner Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Although I understand the need for Leone, we also have contractual obligations with Blackman Township, and I'd like to make sure that those obligations are met before we do further work or those projects that are outlined here for Leone. And I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Sir, that's You have a motion on the floor that's been seconded at this time.
Would you like to
So-
offer a friendly amendment?
Yeah, let's make that a friendly amendment.
I would be in agreement to that.
I didn't see who supported.
Yeah.
Supported the amendment.
I didn't hear support.
Okay. Who first supported the original? And we have an amendment from Commissioner Snell. I'm looking for support to that because there's,
I'll support that.
the amendment is to make sure that we're taking care of our contractual obligations to Blackman Township before spending the money within Leone Township on primary roads.
Yes.
Speaking to the amendment, Commissioner Poleski.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the amendment. I think regrettably, we are demonstrating our own parochial views in our own districts over the use of general fund dollars, and that's even worse than the original motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments from commissioners? Any further comments from commissioners? Voting on the amendment first. Are you ready, Madam Clerk? I'll do yea and nay, don't worry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Let the minutes reflect 7-2 on the amendment. Now we're at to the original motion, moved by Commissioner Kennedy, supported by Commissioner Duckham. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Let it reflect 7-2. Commissioner Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes Public Safety and Transportation's business tonight.
We're now on to general government, chaired by Commissioner Phil Duckham. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First up, we have appointments. This will be for the Employees Retirement Systems Board. Current member is James Shotwell. The applicant is James Shotwell. The committee recommendation is James Shotwell.
Concur with the recommendation of the chairman. Entertain a motion.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be second item, item B, elevator repairs at the Jackson County Tower Building.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
I have a motion and support. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for being the clanging gong tonight. Just to save time, I'll be a no on the four items. Not that I believe we don't need to do the work. I think we absolutely do need to do the work. But as I noted in committee, we're continuing to dedicate ARPA monies without doing what I consider to be a critical part of our ARPA responsibilities, which is to determine which of our buildings might we mothball or sell. We have proven that we can do with less office space in this county, and I'd like to see us understand that plan before we dedicate too much of our ARPA monies. I absolutely respect the work of the administration and of our building people in recommending these repairs. I believe they need to be done, but thus far, what small leverage I have, has not been able to pry loose a report that will indicate how we might trim ourselves of some buildings in this county. And so I'll be a no, regrettably, but that's what I'm looking for. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you. I'll be a yes on all four. It's full well knowledge amongst the board here that the plan is coming forth on the possible building divestiture, and the Region 2 is working on other projects. Might I point out that if we do decide there's a building that we don't need, none of these buildings could be sold without fixing the current problem that is listed here and scheduled for repair by our facilities. So I will definitely be a yes. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Kennedy?
I'd concur with everything Commissioner Duckham said, and also add that the reason the report hasn't come from administration is because Region 2 has been utilizing their resources to study the sheriff's millage proposal. Unfortunately, you have to set priorities, and the jail's a pretty big priority right now, but that report's coming, and the reality is that elevator there doesn't work. The elevator at the Human Resource Building doesn't work, and we have roofs that need to be repaired. So they need to be done regardless of the report. I don't believe any of the three buildings will be closed. So I will be a yes. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Bear?
Yeah, I can understand the need to figure out which buildings we're going to mothball, if some of them are that bad, but I think it's highly unlikely we're going to mothball the courthouse. So yes, we ought to fix the roof on the courthouse. The Human Service Building, I doubt we're going to mothball that, so we need to fix the roof so it's not leaking. The tower building here, highly unlikely we're going to mothball this building. So yes, let's fix the masonry and the stone before it falls off the face of the building and kills somebody. Elevator modernizations, yeah, none of those buildings are going to be mothballed. So if there is consideration in the future to just close existing buildings, yeah, we need to follow that, but I don't see any of these buildings being in that category. So I'll be supporting all four of these.
Commissioner Snell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also echo Commissioner Pileski's concerns. And I also understand the point of repair for these buildings. I will be a reluctant yes. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing or hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please post the vote on Facilities Jackson Elevator Modernization Project? I'm up. Seven two or 8-1.
8-1.
Motion carried 8-1. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next up, we have the tower masonry repair that we need to have done before winter sets in and we go through another freeze-thaw cycle. I'll make that a motion to have that move forward.
Support.
I have a motion and I have support. Any commissioner comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you post? Motion carries 8-1. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next up, we have item D. This will be the Human Services Building on Lansing Avenue, roof repairs. I'll make that a motion.
We have a motion. Do I have a support? Commissioner Bear supported. Any comment? Madam Clerk, when you're ready. That passed 8-1. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have another facilities that would be the courthouse roof repair. I'll make that a motion, sir.
I heard a motion and I heard support. Commissioner Bear? Comments? When you're ready, Madam Clerk. Yes. Passed 8-1. Commissioner Duckham.
Okay, and we'll move on to item F. That would be the county, the Region 2 Planning Commission Letter of Consistency concerning the Liberty Environmental Landfill. That's a motion?
Support.
Motion and support. Commissioner, questions?
Yes, just one question. I think I may be able to wrap this up
Yes, sir.
in one question for administration. Is our current landfill in compliance with Eagle's regulations?
Yes.
Okay, have we ever been in any danger of it hindering, or any of the water sources being hindered by it?
I can't speak to that. I am not aware of any.
Okay. Then I guess I can't wrap it up in one question. So my last question is, when was the last time that the landfill's been reviewed by Eagle? Do we know that?
I do not. That would be between Eagle and the Liberty landfill. They're in compliance with our solid waste plan.
Okay.
That's what the letter basically is for.
But as we know of today, they are in compliance.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing further.
Any questions? Commissioner Bear?
It has been, I will use the word alleged, it's been alleged that some of the property put in the landfill is blowing away in the wind and getting into the river. Has any research been done on that? Can we verify that? Is that true?
Not by the county. That's outside of our jurisdiction. Again, that would be Eagle. There's people who look at those sort of things.
So to get confirmation of that, we would have to go through, request it through Eagle?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Duckham.
I'd like to point out, Eagle regulates the landfill. Eagle inspects the landfill, probably on a quarterly basis at least. And it's not up to Jackson County to go out there and inspect it or implement the guidelines of operating that. That's all set by the state of Michigan. We just have approved the consistency with our land use plan and our solid waste plan. And after that, it's all up to Eagle, and we have to trust their work. If you have a suspicion of something not right out there, all you have to do is call Eagle, and they'll go check it out. Thank you.
Further commissioner comments? Madam Clerk, could you post the vote?
I don't have a motion to support.
I apologize. I need a motion and support.
So move.
I have a motion and support.
We did.
So Commissioner Williams supported then. So Commissioner Duckham made the motion, Commissioner Williams supported. Everyone can vote. The clerk's placed it in front of you. Passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. We've arrived at Human Services, chaired by Commissioner Earl Pileski. Commissioner Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no items for action tonight.
Thank you, sir. We have no unfinished business. We're at new business. We've arrived at the sheriff's jail proposal. Sheriff, would you like to join us? Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be in front of you again. So I'm trying to communicate. So I have the architectural group on Zoom. So if you have any questions for them, they'll be able to answer them for you. That's why I brought my phone up, just in case I needed to communicate with them to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. So you all were provided with a, a copy of the final report. One of the things that I want to do before I begin is point out there's just a couple of small items that were erroneously placed into this bid, or in the summary rather. And just for edification purposes, I'll just point them out. One of them was on page 107, which discussed the boilers. It spoke about a boiler being brand new in 2003, when in actuality, that was the boiler for the addition. It wasn't the boiler for the entire facility on Wesley Street. Those boilers have not been replaced, and those are the old ones that you've heard folks talk about, and of course you folks saw, that are monitored with a meat thermometer and adjusted with vice grips. And then on 129, it indicated that the facility was built in 1984 for 160 inmates. That was an error. It was actually built in 1952 for 90 inmates. So just a couple of little things there. Page 130 also discusses the boiler again, so it's just a continue on of that error that was on page 107. So I just wanted to point that out to you. One of the things that we had in compiling this, you know, that's 304 pages, and it was a real in-depth look at the courts. It was an in-depth look at our bookings. We were, fighting backwards, as my undersheriff would say, trying to get things in a manner that was easily understood, so that we could use that information to make a determination as to where the jail needed to be. So there was a tremendous amount of work by my staff, by myself, and by the architectural group to get that all compiled. So
there are 3 participants in the meeting.
So when we were doing this, we didn't have a chance to go over the final study and nitpick every little thing. So we did have that opportunity here the last couple of days, and those are things that I picked up prior to having this put on board docs. So those are just some corrections I wanted to point out. Relatively minor in the general scope of this. So you understand that we went with RQAW to compile all of this information that I just spoke about and to place it into this report with a recommendation. And the recommendation is to eliminate the Wesley Street facility as it stands. In other words, to not use it as a jail. And there's a number of enumerated reasons as to why that the Wesley Street facility should no longer be utilized. Part and parcel to the fact that it's decrepit and old, and you folks know the drill on that. You've seen the facility yourself, so you understand the problems with it. This is confirmation that simply cannot be fixed. We knew that probably going into it, but we needed an architectural service to come in and give us a good hard evaluation of the premise to make that determination conclusively, so we can go forward knowing that we're doing the right thing. So in this particular circumstance, that was what they came up with. One of the other things that they found out was that we're chronically overcrowded. And what's important to understand about that is what overcrowding really means. So we have a classification issue that I've spoken with you folks about in the past, and that classification issue refers specifically to inmates that are at a high level. These are the people that are shooting. These are the people that are involved in criminal sexual conduct or rape complaints. These are the people that are involved in your high-end crimes like murder, arson, those types of things as well. We have a lot of them. This is our pretrial detention area, and we have a lot of them in our facility, and we have to classify them appropriately. In addition to that, a lot of them know one another, so we have to keep them segregated from each other as well. So this creates a series of different problems for us in the classification issue. Now, the Chandler Road facility, which is kind of our overflow, if you will, what that is basically the lowest level of classification that we can offer an inmate. And they are able to go out there in that dorm-style barracks and serve out their misdemeanor sentences. Well, that works well and good, but we have an overcrowding of pretrial detainees. So we can't use the Wesley Street facility for that. But I got to tell you, there has been on occasion where we've had to do that with people that we know as to be nonviolent offenders, but are still waiting for pretrial detention purposes. So that's created a lot of difficulties for us and a lot of problems. COVID has been especially challenging as a result of that as well. So with a 185-bed facility, operational capacity of our facility should be 148 inmates. We are always over 148 inmates. I looked before I came here today, we were 171 today, and that's common. It's also common for us to have a tremendous amount of inmates to come in during the day, during work periods, and then they go out through the courts, and we request bonds on them because we have no place to put them. So you'll note the last few years that bookings went down. In terms of 7,000 bookings, we're down to 5,000 bookings. Or maybe instead of 8,000 bookings, we're down to 6,000 bookings in a couple of the years as you'll scroll through the schematics. And the rationale behind that is a lot of those have been diverted straight to the courts. Courts have their own fingerprint machine now, and we just get out of the booking process altogether because we got no place to put them. And that's the problem that we've been having with our Wesley Street facility. Classification, no place to put people. So that's just been compounded over the years. In fact, now I've been a law enforcement officer in this town on and off now for 33 years, and it's always been a chronic issue here. I think it was alleviated a little bit, if I recall correctly, when the 2004 edition was added, but the reality of it is that went away, or that evaporated within a year or two. So we were right back to square one and having difficulty of booking people. So I wanted to make sure that I explained to you what that meant and what the overcrowding issue was all about. Then in addition to that, I wanted to explain to you the general space evaluation of the Wesley Street facility, and talk to you a little bit about the blind spots that we have in a lot of our larger cells, and the inability to see past those blind spots, and how difficult it has been to manage those populations, particularly on the third floor. The third floor is our highest level security floor. This is where the really big guys, in terms of criminals, are being housed, okay? On the third floor is the tunnel that goes over to the courthouse. That tunnel on Fridays, for instance, which is a pre-conference day, that tunnel is used for 18 to 20 inmates at a time. And they'll go across into that tunnel, they'll go over into the courthouse, they'll talk with their attorneys, they'll make a determination as to whether or not they're going to have a preliminary exam, whether they need additional discovery, or whatever the case may be, and then one by one they get sent back through that tunnel. So the reason why I'm pointing this out to you is because of the blind spots that we have on the third floor. We have one officer that's designated to watch that tunnel, and he's also designated to do the rounds on the third floor and to pay particular attention to those blind spots. So one by one, he's bringing them inmates back in. This is how contraband gets introduced into the facility, because they'll pick it up. There's all sorts of crazy things that go on. They can pick it up inside the courthouse. They see people that they know. Different things get transferred that way, and then they come back in the facility. We do a head-to-toe search of them when they come back through. We take them back, we put them into their cell, but we don't have time to do a complete strip search of that individual when he comes back into the facility. So it's particularly problematic, and that's how additional contraband gets introduced into the facility. So the problem is when they go back into these cells and they have these blind spots, that's where contraband gets spread. That's how different things happen, and that's what causes a lot of problems for the managing of our third floor in our facility. So that's pretty much specific to the Wesley Street facility. There's really no other jail that I've run across in doing my own personal evaluations that has that that type of interaction with the inmates, where they come over one at a time. And that's because of the way our general layout is and the way our design is of our building. So that's been particularly difficult.
Do you want questions as we go, Sheriff, or do you want us to wait?
Absolutely.
Okay, then I need to chime in here.
Sure.
It was my understanding under COVID that we were doing Zoom
Yes.
processing within the district and circuit court system of all our inmates, whether it was third floor or not,
Yes.
and that your analysis of capacity, and I want everyone to understand that I'm going to be speaking administratively. I know where the sheriff's at, I know the quality of the facility he has, but I'm going to raise some questions because I've had the privilege of serving as a county commissioner through Sheriff Zavazlak and all the way forward, Sheriff Hines, Sheriff Rand, and now Sheriff Schutte, and it's been my pleasure to be with true law enforcement people like this who have an administrative understanding also. So the capacity of Wesley Street was 185 and Chandler was 252.
Yes.
With us being awfully close to wanting 437 in a perfect dream world of well-behaved prisoners, okay? But typically we operate at about 350. Now, what complicates that also is that we really don't have, and this has come on in the last 20 years, a way to deal with female criminals also in the system because they end up having to be housed at Wesley Street. They're not something that we can put in the barracks out at Chandler Road, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we deal with our female population, and typically that ranges between 40 and 75, with a number I saw just before COVID of about 96, and we talked a little bit about that we didn't want to work our way back to that. So your thought is that we're now getting back to where the prisoners are having to go back and forth to the courts. They're actually going before the judge and in the courtroom. We're not able to utilize Zoom for any of the work that we can do with the prisoners?
So what I was outlining is a particular problem when the courts open up wide open again.
Okay.
However, we do have a couple of judges that want that physical inmate into their facility, into their courtroom. So what happens is they leave and it's under the same premise. So we'll get 9, 10 of them to go over at a time for one particular judge because they want them face to face, and then we still have that issue. What I was outlining is how the facility works and how we manage it right now. Now, COVID has caused us a lot of other special challenges that have been particularly disarming. But this has not been one of them except for just a couple of judges. So I hope I made that.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So that's not happening every day like it used to, but it's still happening. Yes, sir.
How, I would assume you're going to have to, on Fridays, run 2 or 3 trips with a jail van to get them from the new jail to the courthouse then?
So, the state court administrator's office is saying now that we can do this by Zoom. So we can have these television hearings taken care of as long as they're non-adversarial, meaning that there's not going to be arguments made back and forth and witnesses cross-examined and examined and so on and so forth. If it's just going to be like an arraignment or a pretrial conference or a pre-con, we can handle all of that by Zoom. And that's the vast majority of them, but we will have to transport some back and forth for the adversarial proceedings like motions, preliminary exams, and of course trials, and then sentencings. The inmate has or the person, I should say, has the ability to be there if they want to for the sentencing, or they can waive it and do that by Zoom as well. So what happens right now is because we have such limited capabilities for Zoom, when we have all of these different hearings going on, and some of the judges get upset because they're over there waiting and waiting and waiting, we have to take them over. And it creates a particular problem at this point. You know, I've told you about COVID. Once they leave the confines of the jail, they come back, we have to quarantine them for 5 days. So we try to avoid that as much as possible, but it still is going on. So we send 8, 10 of them over there at a time. They come back one at a time. We're still searching. We're still looking for them. Now we got to put them in a different cell away from everybody else where they're quarantined. So there's a lot more problems and issues that come up as a result of COVID. In fact, I'd like to go back to what I just talked about, because even though that was chaotic, it was easier than it is right now. So we stick them on Zoom, they work on Zoom, they go through their hearings on Zoom, but unfortunately, we have hiccups because structurally, our building just doesn't have the capability of having enough Zoom hearings in it to satisfy the needs of the court. And also, when we do have it, we have a lot of problems. So there's just a couple that we can use. We'll try it sometimes through Wi-Fi and a couple of our different iPads, and then they get dropped in the middle of a court hearing, and it upsets the judge, it upsets the defense, it upsets the prosecution, and the whole hearing has to start back over. I mean, it's just been a lot of chaotic things going on. So it's just because of the limitations of the physical structure, quite frankly, that's caused it all.
Understand that. A second question here, real quick. With not having to address the blind spots and the way that the jail is not laid out properly, would that create more efficiencies within your jail staff where maybe we wouldn't need as many? Because we have eliminated the blind spots, and we could simply assume that the money we save there would help pay for the new jail?
That's a great question. That is a great question. And the answer to it is this: we're going to be having a larger population. As a result of having a larger population, we're going to need additional corrections deputies. So the answer is yes and no. And what I mean by that is, yes, we won't need as many for a population the size that we need, but no, we're probably going to be right about the same as what we have right now. So we're going to kind of balance that out. In other words, right now our population level on Wesley Street is 171. If we had 250 inmates in a new facility on Channer Road, we could get the job done with the same amount of people that are taking care of the 171 as would be the additional 70 that we would put over on Channer Road. So it seems like we would be able to get away with less, but because we're increasing the population of our jail, it's going to about balance out to where we are right now.
Followed you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing nothing else, I'll just kind of go through this. You guys know me. You won't get home until midnight if I keep talking. So I'll do my best to kind of just hit the highlights here. Please let me know if there's anything else that you have questions on. Essentially, and I'll get, I think the most important thing here is to kind of cut to the chase. I'm quite certain that you gentlemen are aware of the need because you've all came to the facility. So what I'm looking at here in the proposal, it's actually on page 43, but it's 40 inside of the proposal. And that's the proposed total project cost estimate. So when I first came to you, I explained that I had a couple of architects in that were not RQAW who said the cost would be about $40 million. Well, as we continue to look at this, a lot of things changed in the world, and costs went up considerably. Inflation went up. Nobody could foresee that coming. So as a result of that, our costs have gone up for this project. But I'm happy to tell you, not terribly. Not terribly. Now, originally, when I came to you, I told you that I had spoken with the city under the idea that perhaps we could share some services and perhaps share the building. But that just doesn't seem that it would be feasible right now. And the reason for that is the costs to have a shared facility would be extraordinarily high. When we put all of that together, we were looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 to $74 million. and that was, I'm not sure I'd vote for that. So I don't think I could ask you to vote for that. Nor do we want to ask the citizens to vote for that. So anyway, we scaled that back. We do have some information in here about a joint facility in the event that becomes possible at some point in time. But the reality of it is, what we need is a jail. We need a good working jail, modern jail. I'm not worried about my office space, what that looks like, but I'm worried about the jail. And when you look at the jail here on page 40, those are the costs. And the reason why there's a low and a high, I'll let the architect speak to that, but it's because they simply don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next with kind of the tumultuous season we're in right now. But you're looking at a total project cost for a Channel Road jail of $36 million on the low end, and on the high end, $41 million and some change. So we're right in that ballpark of the $40 million. Now, what you're not getting out of that is a new facility on Wesley Street. So in order to get that, you have to look at the second potential future scope, and that's the Wesley Street Sheriff's Office. Now, on the low end, that would cost an additional $11 million and some change, almost 12, and then on the high end, it would be just over $13 million for a new Wesley Street facility. Now, that would be in addition to the Channel Road facility. Yes, sir.
Use your mic, Greg?
But yes, it does include demolition.
Okay.
So the demolition for Wesley Street, I was pleasantly surprised, would be just under $1 million. So the one other thing that I wanted to tell you about is originally I said $40 million for both of these two. This is where it kind of comes into play here. If you look on the high end, and I always look worst case scenario, that would be $54 million. So it would be a $14 million increase from what I was originally informed of back in September, November area of last year. So it's gone up considerably just in the last couple of months. But anyway, I wanted to point that out to you so that you knew. And then, of course, on the bottom end, which is the female dorm addition, that would be out at the Channel Road facility. This is something I think we really need to make sure that we get for a lot of reasons. But on the low end, it's just over $1 million. On the high end, it's just under $1.2 million. So my suggestion would be, in all of this, is that we would do the Channel Road facility with the woman's dorm. So it would be anywhere between $37 million and some change, as high as $42 million and some change. So that's what I would like you to consider. Yes, sir, Mr. Bear.
Is it feasible to do the Channel Road facility, $41 million, without doing the female dorm?
Sure, it's feasible.
Where would the females be housed?
Well, the females will continue to be housed inside of the existing 250-bed facility. What we're looking at with a female dorm is, right now we have the two male dorms out there, and we don't have a female dorm out on Channel Road. So to try and equalize that, we would put the female dorm out there. So that would just be in addition to what we already have dorm-wise.
Thank you.
We'd still have females out there. I hope I'm clear on that.
So I guess I have a question for the architectural company. When we built Channel Road, we overbuilt and put a pad in for a third barracks. Is that out there still, or did that end up becoming all the other operations that we now have at Channel Road? You know, emergency, the morgue, all the other operations that we have going on, or we didn't get as far as we thought we were going to on building the extra infrastructure out there for going forward with the third dorm?
No, sir, it's not.
This is Sanjay Patel, Project Manager for KW Corporation. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. During our investigations of Chanter Road, we did not see any pads that were ready for a future expansion that we could tell. And we looked at the plans also that were available to us, and I don't believe that was built. But if somebody has any information regarding that, we'd be more than happy to look at that.
I don't believe that it was, sir. In fact, I think it was encompassed into either the ME's office or something else. And
I would believe that.
yes, sir.
Sheriff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so looking at the worst part of this project, which is Wesley Street, we would continue to use that?
No. So
I mean, even if we weren't to build a new building, what are we going to do with that?
So, no, I would not use it for a jail.
Would it have any use?
I could use it for my offices. One of the things that I suggested was that we'd also move road patrol out onto Chanter Road. We could retrofit the current administrative building to have additional locker rooms and add some needed showers out there for them. We could transfer our automobiles out there and have everyone out on Chanter Road in a new facility, and my offices could stay on Wesley Street. We could mothball 90-95% of the building. I could still stay in it along with the ladies that work the front counter, along with the undersheriff and my two captains, which is required by the law. We could still occupy that front portion of the building if need be. And I'm just looking at it in terms of cutting costs and making it feasible for the county.
Okay, I understand that, but, I mean, the worst part of this project is Wesley Street, and that needs to be scraped off the face of the earth.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions of the sheriff? Earl?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and I'm kind of thinking about the dollars and cents of it. I'm convinced that you've made the case that we need to do something down there, and I appreciate the hard work that you and your staff have put to put together the program and to come up with ideas and to do that. I appreciate that very much. I'm looking at the Region 2 report, page 3.
We're going to have that presentation, Earl.
That's another presentation?
Yes, sir.
Then I think I will wait.
Okay.
We're not going to make the
Scared
sheriff
me there for a
answer.
minute.
I'm going to make him go through that. Okay.
Do that.
All right, good. Thanks very much for being here, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Tony, go ahead.
Sheriff, if we don't do anything with the Wesley Street facility at this time, and you continue to occupy a small portion of that for your offices, which the law requires you to do, when would we and how would we in the future get that $11 to $13 million to knock the worthless part of it down? I mean, if we don't fund all three of these at this point, when and how will we fund Wesley Street later?
That's a great question, and I don't think I've got an exact answer for you, but some of the things that I've kind of been rolling around in my brain are, if there's a vacant building that comes open somewhere in the downtown proximity that would make sense to buy and for my office to occupy, then we could do something like that and then handle the Wesley Street facility from that point in terms of demolition. Something that may be cheaper than the $11 to $13 million. Maybe we could get something for $2 million or $3 million, and maybe I got a pipe dream, but I'm just thinking if there's something else that we could do to make it as cost-effective as possible. I'm willing to do whatever we need to do. My issue is the jail, And if we got to live in Wesley Street, myself and the command staff, we're fine with that. We just want to make sure that the jail's taken care of.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else, commissioners? The administrator would like to ask some questions, if he may.
Thank you. Just help me understand, because when we had originally spoke, I was thinking of pods.
Yes.
And I was thinking of it as like in four. I think of, like you said, there's the scary criminals and there's the lighter weight criminals.
Yep.
And the lighter weights can be in the dorms, but the ones that are scary and dangerous, we have to have them isolated. And that's true of the women too, right?
Yes.
So we have need of 4. And
I'm sorry, need of 4.
4 pods.
4 pods. I think of the barracks as just one big pod. For
Oh, I see.
Lighter.
So,
light.
if you can indulge me for just a moment. So if you scroll a little bit deeper into this, and I'll get you a page number here in just a second. It kind of explains how this layout works. This is a big report. So, essentially the way, I'll just explain it as I continue to look. Essentially the way these pods work is they're shaped into a pie system inside of a square. So the building is built kind of like a big, large, square pole barn. And inside the pole barn are these pods. And these pods are the jail cells themselves. And those jail cells are constructed of steel, and they're all welded together. And at the back of the cell is the toilet, the sink, and the shower. So inside of that cell, depending upon what type of inmate you've got in there, you could have as many as 2 people. And it's a very small, rectangular-shaped pod. And these pods go together inside that much larger square and kind of a pie shape, and they're kind of fanned out. So you'll have multiple people inside of these pie-shaped areas inside of these little pods.
The officers in the middle.
And the officers in the middle.
Similar to what Calhoun County has?
Calhoun County's got more of a linear design. It's just like what Livingston County has.
Okay.
Livingston County is exactly what we're talking about. So, like if you start at, it looks like on page 224, and you can kind of see a little bit on 225 how that is set up. And we have a central control center in the middle, and it's all windows, and it's got digital screens all around it as well. And then inside of those windows, those are your pie shapes that go off from it. And you can see back in there the different cells that they have. So, and that's what I'm calling a pod.
So on page 227, is that when you go to that page?
Yes, that's exactly the layout right there, 227. That would be like a first floor, and then in addition to that is a second floor with additional pods stacked up on top of the first. That's all seen from the control center.
So is this what I'm looking at on page 227 would this be like the footprint and then one pod, so the pods are stacked vertical?
Right.
So you in essence need 3 new ones out there. Because the barracks is existing pod.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're referring to that as a pod.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just the lightweight criminal pod, and then we have
Yes, you're exactly right.
Okay.
You're exactly right.
I'm trying to understand, because I'm like,
Okay.
what are we building?
I just got to get our terminology
Yes,
right. Yep,
yes.
You're absolutely correct.
Non-law enforcement. Okay, all right, so I understand the pod, what you're proposing there. For the benefit of the board, the sheriff and I have spoken a number of times about this and banged around some different ideas. And the one that I haven't heard mentioned yet is relocating you to one of our existing buildings in Jackson.
Right.
And meaning scraping off the building over there, it becomes more parking, and you could utilize some potential space that we have for your office and command staff, I suppose, and your officers would be relocated to Chanter.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the question I have with that, though, is don't we need a sally port and some holding cells over at Wesley? Will we still have to build, if we scrape that off and you have to bring people over there, how do you do that?
You know, it would be ideal. Yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It would be ideal. So, you know, Jackson's kind of unique in a lot of senses when you look at how inmates and transportation occurs, right? Because so the Department of Corrections obviously has a big footprint here in Jackson, and we have people that commit crimes inside of the Department of Corrections. So they bring folks to our county jail, and these are bag fellas. These guys have been convicted of crimes already, and they've done other crimes in the prison. So they come in, they park, if you'll notice, across from the door, the entry door of the Wesley Street courthouse, there's prison-only parking right there. So they park their vans over there, they get people out. Now, this is not ideal, but they get people out and they walk them right through the front door and they take them to the public elevator, and then they take them up to wherever they're going to trial or seeing their attorney or whatever the case may be. Now, that's not ideal, okay? But it's possible to do it. We can operate that way if we need to. So it would be nice if we didn't scrape the Wesley Street facility and we kept it. We could still utilize that Sally Port for transports. I can bring people in through the current booking area, take them in through the elevator, take them up to the third floor, transport them through that tunnel in a more secured fashion so they go into the building without having that exposure and that ability to run. So I would like to have something like that if possible, but we can certainly make it work if we don't. The original plan, the $70 million plan that I was telling you about, that original plan called for a Sally Port to be attached to the building, the new building that was being erected, and to the courthouse. And that was going to be coming right straight up off the alleyway. It was locked. They were going to go in. They had an exterior elevator designed to take the inmates so that they didn't interact with the public whatsoever up to whatever floor they needed to go to in the courthouse for their proceeding. That's absolutely the best, right? But quite frankly, we just can't afford it, and I know that. So, you know, I've talked with my command staff, and we've gone through it. You know, what can we do? What's the most important thing to do? How do we prioritize this? And that's why I've come up with Wesley Street. We got to do away with the confines of Wesley Street in terms of using it for inmates, but we got to have a jail, and we got to have this type of a jail, a modern facility that's safe for the deputies and safe for the inmates. So that's kind of where we fell on this. Now, in terms of how we would make that work, we'd have to make sure that we had properly trained transportation deputies, and we're in the process of doing that right now. We have transportation deputies already, but we'd have to do a little bit more. In fact, we've just recently changed, and it'll go into effect at shift change, which is July 1. We recently changed the patrol deputy position, which was taking care of all of the inmates, to a corrections position. And that's going to be critical, because then corrections is going to have a hands-on approach to the courts and taking people over and getting them taken care of for their proceedings. So I think we can handle it if we can't afford it. I don't want to say I think. I know we can handle it if we can't afford it. I know we can. We will make it work.
It's just not ideal. It's out in the open in the elements.
It's not ideal.
Well, I guess the question I'm getting at is, I would like to see a price. You know, obviously, this is discussion tonight, and we're going to come back in July and do it again at study session and as many times as we need to, special meetings even if necessary. At least that'd be my feeling about it. I'm sure the board would agree. But what is the price to build these 3 pods out there? Because you already have the one.
Yep.
Relocate you into some other space in one of our existing buildings downtown, and just add on a Sally Port with a few holding cells. I mean, you're talking in my mind, I'm back to that pole barn on the side.
Yeah.
where you drive in, you shut the door, that's what a sally port is, right?
Yes. Yep, it's got a door on both ends.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we just haven't priced that out yet.
No.
I see.
Nope, I can do that, though.
Yeah, I do think that is such a better option. I hate to see
Your
us.
idea would be to create a sally port on Wesley with the entrance there. You'd drive through it to Washington Street.
Well,
You'd have, hold on, let's just walk through it. And then we would have holding cells for the courts in a facility on Wesley Street with that sally port. Because you gotta have a place to hold them. You're not gonna drive a busload of 12 in and take them upstairs to Circuit Court. Okay. Next question that I have for you, where does Lifeways fit into all this and all the other solutions alternative solutions that we have out there to deal with when we deal with different types of inmates?
Yep, great question. So I've already spoken with Mary Beth Leonard, talked to her about this. She's toured the facility as well. We can make it work out on Channer Road. In fact, it's going to work a lot better. If you didn't know, the second floor of our facility right now is where our Lifeways manager operates, and it is a visiting booth that's literally no bigger than this podium. And she just uses it basically as storage, and she sits in there once in a while and turns and looks at somebody that she's going to be interviewing. It's absolutely ridiculous.
We're looking at something similar to the 1950s plate glass between
That's exactly it.
people visiting.
Yes.
thing.
Yep. So what we have out on Channer Road right now is an office space. We have interview rooms. We look to enhance that. There's a couple of different ways that we can do that. But we have, right now, if we were just to pick up everything and start right out there, we have a better place for mental health to work out of out there right now than we do on Wesley Street. And we're only going to enhance that and make it better. In addition, we have other rooms out there that we can utilize for other programming that includes GED. Now, we do these things already, but they're limited in scope. And the reason why is because of the physical limitations that we have over on Wesley Street. Frankly, the only place that we can have a classroom over on Wesley Street is that gym that you all saw on the second floor. So if we've got people on third floor, first floor, wherever they're at, we have to transport them up there for a classroom. It's just highly problematic. When you have this type of layout, you can do it right in their pod. You can take them out to a classroom that'll set apart. Whatever the case may be, it's a wonderful way of being able to deal with those types of issues rather than trying to get, Peter to Rob Paul to go over here and do all sorts of different things. So it just makes a lot more sense over there, programming wise.
I'm looking back at the math, and it says female dorm. So are we talking about building two pods, one for the hardcore criminal female and hardcore males? We've got our existing pod for the males, lightweight, and another dorm for the females?
So, yes, the short answer is yes, but it requires an explanation. So the beauty of these pods is that they're all separate from one another. So when you look at this fanned out, and then I showed on 228, it's actually 231 if you're scrolling through it. But the beauty of all that, when you look at those pie shapes, so they're sight and sound from the other pods. The other pods can't hear them, and they can't see them, obviously. So you can put females anywhere in there. So that's the beauty of this system. So the dorm style is because we already have males in that dorm style, that the females should also be able to have that dorm style as well. So that was the idea of adding that on, to allow them to participate in those types of activities that the males are participating as well, to try and keep it as equal as possible. So that was the idea behind the female dorms.
Is there an opportunity within this building structure, and I'm on page, looks like 232, where we build half the pods to start with, and then add them as we can go forward, funding-wise, or do we need to build the whole square building, period, with all the pods and everything in it. You follow my question?
Yep, I sure do. And the answer to that is, we need the space. We need to be able to have 250 people inside of this building, and this building's capacity is 250. So if we wanted it any larger, we'd have to build another building in order to stay within the way that the architectural group has built this. And this is a masterful engineering design, but there are options for that. I mean, you could build a couple of these, and anticipating in the future that you would need additional space, but I think we've kind of gone through the whole needs survey for the next 10, 20, and 30 years, and I think we're going to be okay with this for the next 20 years. This is going to pull us through. So I think what we ought to do right now is put forth what we need, the 250 pods, or excuse me, 250 beds in those pods in that arrangement, and move forward with this. If we need it in the future, we can always add on to this structure, and we'll have the existing facilities out there to handle it.
So part of our issues with Wesley Street is that we built a facility that was supposed to last 50 years, and we were able to make it last 71 years. Is this one rebuildable, where if when we get out 50 years, we're going to be able to update or pull pods out and put new things in type thing without, I mean, we're attempting to build where pipes aren't hidden in walls and all of that type of stuff?
Yes, that's a great question. So the beauty of this is, and obviously you've seen all the sewer falling down on people and all that kind of stuff. All of the facility hookups are in the rear of those pods. So you've got the plumbing coming in the back, the heat coming in the back, the electric coming in the back, the light coming in through the back. So as you know, through my demonstrations, you know that they don't like to be there. Inmates don't like to be there, so they flush down the toilet, their pants and their shirts and all that kind of stuff. It goes right outside. So if we have those types of problems, which we will, when we have those types of problems, we can go out there and remedy it just like that. There's no big, huge clog. It's outside the facility. We don't have to go in to the secured portion of the facility like we do now. We can stay on the outside and clean it out. And if there's a catastrophic incident that breaks the cell, although I can't imagine that, but if there is, maybe it's just age, right? They're steel, maybe they rust. I don't know, right? If that happens, we can unbolt them and take them out and put new ones in. So that's the beauty of it. It's really a masterful design. I was thoroughly impressed with it.
Well, when we built Leslie, we thought we were building a masterful design compared to what was on Michigan Avenue.
Right.
So yeah, I appreciate that a lot. Phil?
30 years from now, if we needed more space, would we go up to a third floor or expand the footprint?
Expand the footprint.
Okay.
Yep.
We always stay with two-story.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is you don't want to go up too high. Somebody tries to jump. It makes it difficult also for people to try and keep track of everything when they go up three stories high. And then you can have a separate control tower for just the two-story banks. It just makes a whole lot of sense to keep it at 2 stories.
But we're thinking 30 years down the road also.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So just one quick question. So you had mentioned about, if something were to happen that we could take the pod out, so to speak, and then replace it. So, and if I'm using that terminology right, the pod that you would take out, how much would that cost relatively?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I don't know exactly how much that would cost. So it would be considerably less than if we had to replace an entire jail, I tell you that.
Would it be something that your current budget could handle?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing further.
Go ahead.
Obviously we've known this for some time, been working on this, and so we put together a few different numbers that I will just throw it out there because that's what we're doing, having a conversation.
Yes, sir.
And originally we had looked at $40 million because that was our original number. We were looking at $40 million for 20 years. What's the debt service? It was like $2.6 million annually for 20 years. 1 mil generates roughly Well, it generates roughly $5.2 million annually. However, there's a few costs coming out of that, so think of it more like 4.8 DDAs, brownfields, and LDFAs, and TIFs, and other things that draw off that. So my concern was, what are the operational costs? Are there increases? I'd like to think there would be decreases because it's a pod, it's more efficient, technology, but I don't really know yet. So,
Right.
And then the other side of that, not the other side, but an additional number we did, and we went to our bonding people and everything. These are all numbers that they produced for us with real world, today's interest rates and things like that. If we were to go 50 million, we're looking at 30 years, 3.1 million annual debt service. But a mill is still a mill. It's still, 5.2 million, less a little. Back to my concern, I have that much less money for operating costs. And you know how expenses are. Our expenses never keep up with our revenue, so I'm just looking down the road, are we going to be able to manage? And I assume you're looking at for the operational cost of it right now.
Yep, I'm picking it up right now. I'm just trying to find it so I can speak intelligently.
And again, we'll have other opportunities, I think, our study session in July for people who have had time to read, and we'll have more questions and all this to discuss, and we'll have some additional numbers, I'm sure, some options that we can look at.
So it's referenced in here, how much staffing we're going to need. And right now, we have a sergeant over on Wesley Street. We have a sergeant over on Channer Road. We have 4 people over on Channer Road. And during the day, we have 5 people over on Wesley Street and 4 at night. What this is estimating that we would need is 2 sergeants, which we already have, so there's no increase there. And then point deputies, 6. 6 for control point deputies and 6 for roving deputies. Deputies that actually go out and walk. So that would be a total of 12. Right now, we're at 10. So maybe we're 2 deputies down from what the recommendation is here. So operationally, I think there was an increase, and I'm going to find it. If not, I kind of know it off the top of my head, but I'll see if I got it right here.
It's 282.
282,000. So that would be in addition to what we've already got for operational costs, which I believe we calculated at 1.5 million a year. So you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.8 and some change in operational costs. Thank you, Sanjay.
Any further questions? Commissioner Bear?
It's been said a few times, we're going to have more meetings like this. For future meetings, not this whole 304-page report, but some of the selective slides, like what does the pod system look like?
Okay.
Do we have those so they can be put up on the screens? If we can't do it electronically, can they just be put on poster boards so the public can walk around and see what? So that'd be just my desire to have something the public can actually view.
Tony, it's been at least in the past, upon the Board of Commissioners choosing what they want done, the sheriff then, along with commissioners inside their townships and within the cities and villages, would again have public meetings and show everything off to the whole general public. And I appreciate what you're talking about, so we will work towards that for the meetings in July. I just want you to be aware that we'll put together a second show that we'll be able to go out and show the public, because we're still going to have to sell this to all 161,000 people in Jackson County. I appreciate that we're going to probably support whatever decision we come together with, but I'm sure that there'll be an opportunity for all of us to present it over and over and get it memorized as we did in the past. So, yeah.
And the the whole document is available on board docs for anybody who wants to look at the whole thing. But I agree with Commissioner Bear that we'll put together more of a high-level executive summary, especially as we narrow down and focus down on the preferred, if you will, proposal.
Okay.
Commissioner Duckham.
Yeah, just for my total understanding, and probably some others here, what is the total millage we're going to be looking at? You talked about a mill would produce 4.8 after some deductions.
We would need, well, let's put it this way, we have discussed all along not exceeding 1 mil.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of been our hard cap. We had a half a mil for the last, 20 years, and we paid off the debt service for Channer, and that mill obviously expired, and people know it's no longer on the tax bill. With that, when that expired, we lost a little over $1 million in operation revenue too. So the last millage that people voted for 20 years ago was a construction and operations millage. And it has done its job for the last 20 years. And we would be seeking much the same, the difference being that it would have to be to 1 mil we believe at this point, to fund the debt service and to operate the jail, pay for the officers and the like.
Thank you.
Unless you decide you want some other stuff.
No, I'm good. I just wasn't following how we've got 4.8 million is what a mill would produce. And we're going over 30 years.
It would be. If we were to go $50 million in construction costs at the interest rate that PFM put together for what they believe they could sell a bond for that length of time, we would be looking at roughly, they're saying 3.1 million in debt service annually. Subtract that from our millage, and we have what's left is operating. Anything beyond that would have to be supplemented from the general fund.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know we have other conversations and more homework to do on this, but do we have a target date when we want this to be on the ballot?
We want it to be in November, and the goal is then for us to vote on the language and everything in August, sir.
Okay.
If not, someone could make a motion tonight, and we could go ahead and vote now.
Let's do a little more homework.
That's, yes. But no, my point is that we have meetings between now and then, and if we could do it before August, that would be very helpful to all of us who need to go out and communicate this with the public, because that would give us an additional 30 days to share. So we'll be looking at, coming forward with language as commissioners become comfortable with what they want to vote on. And we'll be making that here as a consensus, having this in public discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing
Yes,
further.
sir. I'm going to ask one question that it's been asked of me repeatedly by different people who work for state corrections. There's a mothballed facility out there. Have we approached the State of Michigan Department of Corrections with a 25-year lease? Or operationally, is there an opportunity for us to use any facilities that are on the Department of Corrections property for us? It's been shared with me that there is not, but I'd like to hear from you
Yes, sir.
Any of those questions.
Yes, sir. We actually contacted the Department of Corrections, and there was a couple of reasons why we did that, but one of them was to see if whether or not we could use one of their facilities, and they indicated that the law prohibits it, and they would not allow it, specifically because we'd have people that had not been convicted of a crime, essentially within earshot and eye shot of people who had been convicted of a crime and inside of the same type of facility as they were. And as a result of that, the law prohibits it, and they absolutely would not even entertain the thought of it. They would allow us to use their bus, though, for transportation purposes in the event that we needed it, which I really appreciated. But they would not allow the intermingling of the inmates.
I thank you for that answer. I know commissioners have approached me about wanting to know if we could or could not use Michigan Department of Corrections facilities, and I thank you for that answer. That was the answer we got 20 years ago also, so it's important.
Hasn't changed.
No, it hasn't changed.
Nope.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure, again, like I said,
Okay.
that we've lifted and looked under every rock possible to find the most efficient and administratively safe way for us to house inmates that are involved with our sheriff's department. I think that's the real goal of what we need to accomplish here for all of us.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Administrator Overton, do you want to introduce us to the Region 2 study? And I think you can step aside, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please. If you guys can come on up, please, Region 2. For the benefit of, well, the audience at least, the board I'm sure is aware, we had originally been working with Region 2 and asked them to evaluate all of our buildings with the idea that, is there some economy of scale with people working remotely? Is there some way perhaps we could consolidate, have a smaller footprint, if you will, maybe have one less building potentially, those kind of things. And we were working towards that goal when the whole jail proposal came up last fall, we were discussing. And we kind of switched gears, to be frank. We said, okay, the jail's going to be a priority. We need to, because the November ballot is coming. We have to be prepared. We have to have ballot language approved by August. I don't remember the date in August. Do you know? The date, some date in August. What?
August 16th by 4 p.m.
August 16th by 4 p.m. That is the drop dead date. We have to have a ballot language approved. This board would have to have made a decision. So we asked Region 2 to switch it up a little and start focusing on the jail, with the idea that when we finish with the jail, we would go back to our buildings and take a hard look. And I know this is Doug Terry. He is a retired city manager of some renown, I might add. Oh, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. But, he has been the lead with Region 2 on this, has done the document that you have before you tonight, and will also be the lead on the broader study of our buildings. And I know he's been working in parallel, but the jail has taken up the bulk of his time. With that, I introduce Doug.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Overton. Mr. Chairman and Board of Commissioners, thank you for giving Region 2 and myself the opportunity to address your honorable body tonight. More than being a retired city manager recently, I'm a Concord Township resident and taxpayer, and middle-aged, fixed income, moving toward that. So I looked at, of course, the bonding numbers that were provided by Bonding Council. And I do want to make a clarification. In our report, we had stated that our taxable value was around $5 billion, or would generate about $5 million for a 1 mil increase. The one thing I want to clarify as being a city manager is that there's always a municipal tax capture. We have DDAs out there, we have other governmental entities that need to have that money. So it's really more like 4.8 that it would generate. So I wanted to make that clarification. Just a couple things I wanted to point out is that I took my tax bill. I live in Concord Township, right on Albion Road. My wife Anita is a registered nurse.
Doug, if you could really try to focus on that mic.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So the folks watching from home.
I'm sorry. So we're moving toward retirement. She's an RN. She works for the Jackson ISD. She teaches nursing. And so what can we afford? So I took my tax bill out and what we pay. And right now, we pay $2,800 a year in property taxes. Now, Concord Schools just had a millage increase, voted in, so how did that affect us? Well, out of the $2,800, this proposal that the sheriff has developed for you, and of course with Mike, would represent about 3% of what that tax bill would be, or a 3% increase. So putting that in perspective, I thought, well, what does that mean to Doug Terry and his family? You know, we don't travel, we don't do a lot of things. But I thought our tax bill would be about $82 a year for this project. And I was thinking to myself, well, gosh, you know, we have a daughter and her family that live, and grandkids that live on South Parma Road, another daughter that lives in Concord. Those are the most important things to me, are my family's safety. And so I got to thinking about that $82 a year, what it would cost this family. And I thought, in perspective, yeah, this makes sense to me that we would spend $82 a year for that added security, knowing that my county was taking care of the inmates in a humane manner, and I have a responsible sheriff who's going to have a road patrol that is going to further take care of us. To me, that was money on my part well spent. That meant everything to me. Now, from a Region 2 and from your perspective, it's an algebraic expression. On one side, you have revenues, and on the other side, you have expenses. And so I wanted to just point that out to you. One of the things also, as the sheriff had pointed out, it's important that we keep the accused separated from the convicted. That is a very important component of state regulations. We have to do that. The other thing that we came to is, of course, gender. We live in a day and age where we have to be very sensitive of making sure that all genders are protected equally and are housed in a safe and humane manner. The other thing is that, and here's the overlap a little bit, COVID-19 has changed our world for us. It's opened up, in some ways, a new way of businesses working. Now, one other thing I want to point out with that is that this is government. And our government, our citizens demand that they have access to those services we provide. Now, is it safe to say that our employees are going to continue working from home? I bet there's probably more private sector employees working from their homes than there are government employees. However, we have to always make sure that our citizens have access to the services they pay for. Given that, the city of Jackson has done an excellent job of renovating their downtown. However, with COVID-19, it certainly has changed the workplace. It has also changed the opportunities that we might have, and as the sheriff pointed out, the state constitution requires that he be housed in the county seat, which is the city of Jackson. So, could we find space here in this building? Could we find space nearby? I'm thinking that we could. Obviously, we want to work for the best solution for the least amount of dollars. So, in the overlap here is the Biden Next project under Mike Overton's command is going to probably be taking a look at the courthouse, I would think, along with this building. So those are the gist of it, and you have my report, and I welcome any questions or comments that you'd like to fire my way. So.
Thanks, Doug, and thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the thing I was going to bring up, and I got spanked about it a little while ago. I'm looking at page 3, where it talks about the annual tax bill, and yeah, the average taxpayer has some cost, but I want to kind of focus on, and there's a lot of numbers that have been thrown around, and I'm supposed to know what I'm doing with numbers, but I will admit that my head has begun to spin with all the numbers we've tossed around tonight. But I see that a $50 million bond at roughly 6% would yield about a $3.1 million annual cost. And I think we've heard that a 1 mil levy would generate about 4.8 million in annual revenue. So that tells me if we were able to do this thing for 50 million, which I'm starting to doubt, okay, we have about 1.7 million in incremental revenues that could go toward operations. I'm not sure I'm getting that right, but because we do need some of these monies to go towards operations, because currently we're using some of the current $500,000 to fund some operations, and I forget how much.
Let me just explain what we found the vulnerabilities are. The vulnerabilities that we are seeing as consumers is inflation right now. If we get into construction costs, as Tony might tell you as being an architect, ordering of steel in certain cases, and I know this from our industrial park where I previously worked, right now could be 6 months out from ordering. There is serious delays in the supply chain. One of the things that would help ensure that we stay within those costs is having good project management. A company like Mercer or Granger or somebody like that, I think that just goes without saying. So when I started in this business in 1982, I was a city manager in a small town called Standish, and we had both a revenue and a general obligation bond. Those bonds were issued in 1982 at 13.375%. It was almost unbelievable. We were having to raise revenue just to cover the interest portion, and it made the project almost unmanageable. Right now, probably if you go back 40 years and during my career, there's never been a time where interest rates have been so lucrative, so attractive. So that in itself is a savings, or will relate to a savings of our own taxpayers, is by issuing. And of course, the time value of money. There's also another component, and that is the time cost of money. If we delay, how much will it cost our taxpayers in 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now? I think we have to be sensitive to that. I think the opportunity for interest rates has never been better, and that's why I think that the sheriff is right on key with what he wants to do, and the timing is critical.
We still have the floor, Mr. Chair? Okay. Yes, thank you. And I think one of the observations that we've made while visiting the jail is that there are risks and there are liabilities that exist with its, I think, admittedly obsolete design. And the potential for liability to inmates or to employees, I think, is very real. My concern is that we are going to end up paying for a new jail whether we have one or not, because of the potential for liability. So that's something else that's compelling to me.
Yes.
In considering the new proposal. I don't know that I kind of got an answer to my $1.7 million operational cost question. I guess that's more of an administration sort of thing.
Your math's right.
Huh?
Your math's right.
Yeah, okay. But that's basically, if we did 1 mil and the cost came in at 50 million, which I wonder whether we can actually do that, we'd have 3.1 million towards bond payments and 1.7 million to use for other stuff. And the report that we just saw kind of assumes a rather substantial increase in operating costs of the jail. We got to kind of chew through those a little bit more, as I think the sheriff noted.
At the end of the day, the bids, the final bids, and project completion will tell the number of what operations probably will be, because the actual cost of construction will determine, because we have to make those bond payments. We just do. That, anything left over from that is what operations will be.
Okay, so, yes, but if not enough is left over for operations, then we find ourselves in the embarrassing spot of having passed a millage, the good citizens having voted for it on reliance upon us knowing that we knew what we were doing, and we find we haven't got enough money to run the thing, or find ourselves compromising some other county service to make sure the jail actually runs the way it should. That's why I want to make sure before we vote to put the thing on the ballot that we understand with wide open eyes the ultimate costs and not only of construction but also of operations that we need to fund.
Yeah, I agree. There are, again, supply chain issues. We're still looking at fuel. Diesel fuel is a major component of any construction cost. That has also thrown an unknown variable cost into this project. So contractors are complaining about that right now. You know, it's eating at their profit margins.
If I may chime in. We will have a good number for operations. I mean, that is something we can determine. We are in negotiations with law enforcement right now. We should hopefully have those contracts resolved sometime soon. And so we'll have a good handle on what those costs are, just a matter of how many employees we're going to have. I think the real variables are the construction costs, you know, and whether we can get it done for 1 mil. It may very well be that at the end of the day we can't. And then we have some hard decisions to make. Are we doing something less that doesn't quite meet our needs, or are we going to ask for more money? Are we going to, are we going to subsidize it with general fund going into it? I mean, what are we going to do? Those are things that we'll all have to decide.
And again, under the direction of Mr. Overton, one of the things that it should be a concern to all the commissioners, and I know it is to me as a citizen and taxpayer, is what about the other county buildings and the services that they provide? That is also in the back of my mind, because we are going to have to explore looking at the courthouse. We're going to have to look at this building, the front of the court. All of the facilities that we own, those are going to have to be looked at. And we ask ourselves, well, is this going to affect the operations of the county, because we're taking operational money, general fund money, and putting it toward repair? As you know, things age, buildings deteriorate, roofs leak, mortar work falls off big buildings. We live in Michigan. We have freeze-thaw. So there is a little bit of an overlap. How are we going to address the inmates at the courthouse? Well, how are we going to look at renovating the courthouse to accommodate that? So there's a little bit of overlap with this jail situation that Region 2 is going to look at, and again, under Mr. Overton's direction. So, Bill.
Doug, you've projected a 4.599% interest rate on the bond?
That's from bond counsel.
Okay. Is there any, I don't feel we can be very confident that that's where it's going to be. That we're trying to correct inflation within our country. I mean...
Well, the fortunate thing about Jackson County is, and thanks to you, is that you're good money managers. Standard & Poor's or Moody's are going to rate us when we actually, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised that our bond rating is going to give us the most advantageous bond rating there is. There's going to be less risk, and so I think we're going to get probably the best interest rate that any municipality could ever want.
Okay. I was just concerned that in November, when we vote for this millage, if we decide to go that way, that this may be an old number that,
It could be. We make no guarantees because things change. However, I don't see that much fluctuation for municipal rates.
That's correct. Generally, think of municipal rates, we're thinking of what we see daily on the TV and all that rates. When you're looking at a 20 or 30-year bond, they're pricing it out over that time frame. Inflation has never lasted long. It'll get in check. It might take a couple years, but it'll be in check. And so when you're selling a bond, they're looking at long-term, not the fluctuation of the variable today. So if our experts tell us they think it'll be 4.6, 5.1, they're in the ballpark. I'm pretty confident of that.
okay.
I do want to finish up by
Thank you.
saying I have great confidence in our sheriff. I think he's done an excellent job of researching this, and I know that as a taxpayer out in Concord, I'm very appreciative of his due diligence. So, welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Will do. Thank you.
For-profit operation and corporation based in Seattle, Washington, and has been lobbying the Michigan legislature to pass legislation that undermines the integrity of the Register of Deeds and Treasurer's Office across the state of Michigan. Therefore, be it resolved that the Jackson County Board of Commissioners opposes Michigan House Bills 4729, 4730, 4731, and 4732, as the private corporations should not benefit financially from the public records at the expense of the Michigan taxpayer, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the Speaker of the Michigan House of Representatives, the Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, Representative Julie Alexander, Representative Sarah Leitner, and the Michigan Association of Counties and the Michigan Association of Treasurers in Michigan. Entertain a motion?
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Stell, supported by Commissioner Duckham. What would you like to do? You want to post or call?
Commissioner Walls. Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes.
Commissioner Duckham.
Yes.
Commissioner Pileski.
Yes.
Commissioner Alexander.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Snell.
Yes.
Commissioner Bear.
Yes.
Chairman Chatwell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. We've arrived at the second opportunity for public comment. Each individual will state their name and have 2 minutes to address the Board of Commissioners. You may only address the board once under this public comment opportunity. You may not yield your time to others. The board members will not debate, nor will they answer questions at this time. This is the opportunity for public comment a second time.
Peter Bournemouth, I wanted to comment on the jail proposal. Mike, I'm glad you brought up the possibility of using some of what we might have in terms of surplus space in other county buildings. I think that would be an excellent way to go about it and not have to build another structure on Wesley Street. The cost for demolition is $1 million. That is an exceptional price for that facility. I thought that was a very good number. I also want to say, as Earl sort of spoke toward, that we really wanted to see a more efficient jail with less costs in terms of personnel, and we're not seeing that. We're actually seeing a small increase. I think there can be some work there, some flexibility there maybe with the sheriff, where, we don't have to hire additional staff for the new facility. I was hoping for a savings cost there. Finally, there's always the possibility of not having as hefty a road patrol. And finally, I want to speak for the women who are incarcerated, inmates in our jail system. I believe they deserve their own space. I think it is absolutely essential for them to be taken out of that Wesley Street facility and put in a space like Chanter Road, so they can also benefit from the, programs, from the possibilities that Lifeways and, that a high school diploma can offer them. Because right now, they don't even get to be outside. I mean, there's no yard privileges at Wesley Street. Their incarceration is a
15 seconds.
miserable experience. I mean, maybe people want to make it that way, but it's really rough on the ladies right now.
Hi, I'm sorry, after a long meeting, I didn't get here for the earlier one, so I'll quickly run through this. And I thought this is important, even though...
To whom am I speaking?
Jennifer Bittinger. So you haven't started yet? Okay. This, I wanted to speak on the fact that just recently I went on the website and there still has been no modifications to the Jackson County Health Department website to warn the public of all the health risks of the COVID-19 vaccine, such as the heart problems and diseases, vascular problems with blood clots, cancer, miscarriages, to name a few. We've all seen healthy athletes collapsing on the field and coming out with news of the prominent celebrities that are struggling. And they even came up with this new, adult death syndrome, because they don't want to acknowledge the vaccine has been causing these problems. So now, with our current federal administration pushing to inject our young children with this harmful vaccination, I must insist that our health department make stronger efforts to inform parents and citizens of the truth. Like I said, I went on the website, I had to go level after level after level. It only talks about possible allergic reactions. It does not give the true consequences of this horrible vaccine. The truth is that children rarely suffer from this virus, and as much as they try to cover it up, we learn of many deaths and disabilities caused by this vaccination. And just to remind everyone, the CDC-approved vaccine for emergency use authorization is not the one they are experimenting on the public and causing great harms. That's why they're getting away with all of this. And it used to be that if there was over 50 negative reactions to a vaccine, it was stopped. Please help stand up against this wicked corruption and inform the people. Thank you so much.
Any other public comment?
Sue McCrellis, I live in Summit Township. I'd just like to thank you for your thoughtful consideration and conversations this evening of all the implications brought forward concerning the proposed jail. I've attended 2 presentations given by Sheriff Schutte. I've toured the Wesley Street Jail. To keep it brief, the current jail is a place where I would not want someone for whom I care incarcerated or employed. I encourage the board to add the necessary language concerning the needed millage to the November ballot. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Trout. I live in Columbia Township. I'm actually a trustee in Columbia as well. First wanted to thank Commissioner Duckham for the updates that he gives our township board on our monthly meetings. Second thing I wanted to do was show my appreciation for the airport board and their support of the airport. In my day job, that's what I do. And so you've got one of the best airport managers in the state in Juan Zapata, and I appreciate your support of him. The real reason I'm up here is that I think it's been mentioned, the road issue is a big deal. I've waited 2 months to have some craters filled in front of my house. I was going to come here tonight and complain about it. They were fixed when I came home this evening. But besides the fact, we all are in the same boat. I mean, I work for MDOT. I am part of a group that does the Adopt a Highway program. I'd like the county to maybe consider an Adopt a Road program where locals can get involved in their local road programs, maybe even take on more than just picking up litter. But it's an idea that, you know, we've got to come up with some innovative solutions here. And it's something that could be done, and I think it could be implemented pretty easily. So thanks for your time.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Public comment is now closed. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Bear.
Well, I'd like to add on to what Jennifer had said earlier. I had asked months ago that our Health Department website list the adverse reactions that people are having to the vaccine. There's a website, I'm not remembering it right, VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Reaction, sorry, I can't remember the whole acronym. We need to be honest with our citizens. We need to be open. Our citizens need to be fully informed, and they need to know the number of people that are dying because they got the vaccine. I'm going to start pushing more. I want our health department to start listing much more accurately than they currently are, saying, oh, you might get a reaction at the injection site. Yeah, you might have a heart attack and die too. We need to be more honest with our citizens. I'm going to start pushing for that again. I would appreciate more citizens showing up and conveying to the rest of the Board of Commissioners. I couldn't convince them. Maybe if 20, 30 of you show up at the next meeting and say, we want this added to the Health Department website, maybe they'll listen.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Kennedy.
I'd like to thank Sheriff Schutte as well as Region 2 for giving an informative presentation. There's no doubt we need to address the situation. How and how much is the only question, and we'll get into that next month. Other than that, I'd like to thank the commissioners for approving the funds to go out to Leone Township and get some roads that have been long neglected. It's not going to be the solution to everything, but it's a start, and I hope it is a start for the local road millage that's going to be proposed out there. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Seeing none, entertain a motion to go into closed session in accordance with MCL 15.268C. A collective bargaining agreement negotiation will be discussed, and in accordance with MCL 15.268A, a personnel matter will be discussed at the request of the employee.
So moved.
We have a motion and support. Could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes.
Commissioner Duckham. Yes. Commissioner Pileski.
Yes.
Commissioner Alexander.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Snell.
Yes.
Commissioner Bear.
Yes.
Commissioner Walls. Chairman Shotwell.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. We will adjourn to the 6th floor conference room, and we most likely will be coming back making a decision.